The Black Archive.
April 22nd, 1915, near the town of Ypres, Belgium. What you are about to hear is based on documented accounts from soldiers who were present during the Second Battle of Ypres, one of the first large-scale chemical attacks ever used in modern warfare, recorded in military reports, letters sent home, and survivor testimonies from the First World War. At that point in history, the men standing in those trenches believed they understood the battlefield. They knew the sound of artillery before it landed. They knew the rhythm of rifle fire. They knew what it meant when the earth shook, when the sky flashed, when the air carried the sound of distant movement. War was brutal, unpredictable, and merciless. But even in that brutality, there were patterns, there were signs. There was always, at the very least, the chance to recognize danger before it reached you. What they did not know, what no one there could fully understand in that moment, was that they were about to witness the beginning of something entirely different. A form of warfare that did not need to be seen clearly, did not need to announce itself with thunder, did not need to strike from a rifle barrel or explode from a shell. It would move quietly. It would spread slowly. It would enter the body without permission. And once it did, the battlefield would never be understood the same way again.
You have been standing in the trench for so long that your body no longer separates discomfort into categories. Cold is no longer just cold. Weight is no longer just weight. Fatigue is no longer something that arrives and leaves. Everything has blended into one constant condition of existence. Your boots are half buried in thick mud that grips them with every shift of your weight, as though the ground itself is reluctant to release anyone from this place. Your uniform is damp and heavy. Your shoulders ache beneath the straps of your equipment. Your hands, dirty and stiff, rest along the rough edge of the trench wall, fingers lined with mud, nails packed with the residue of a world that has long since stopped resembling anything clean or ordinary. Around you, other men wait in the same narrow strip of earth, each of them caught in his own silence, each of them conserving something: energy, thought, nerve, faith. Because war has a way of teaching men that even the smallest internal reserve may become necessary before the day is over. No one says much. There are words here and there, fragments of conversation, the brief exchange of practical information, the occasional forced remark meant to sound normal, but nothing lasts. There is a heaviness in the trench that makes unnecessary speech feel almost disrespectful. The men around you are not calm, but neither are they openly afraid. It is something quieter than fear and heavier than confidence. It is the stillness of men who know they are exposed to violence, but who have lived beside that knowledge long enough that panic has been pushed inward, where it settles into posture, breathing, and the way the eyes move when they think no one is watching. For days, the war has behaved in ways you have learned to understand. Artillery shells scream before they land. Rifle fire cracks through the air in recognizable bursts. Orders come from somewhere. Movement answers movement. There is horror in that system, but there is also familiarity. You are not safe in it, but you can function inside it. You can prepare, you can brace, you can react. Even when men die, they die inside a structure the living can at least recognize. That morning, something about the battlefield feels wrong before anyone can explain why. It begins with the silence. Not the silence of peace, not the silence of exhaustion after violence, but a silence that feels unfinished, suspended, as if something has paused without resolving. No artillery, no command shouted from somewhere down the line, no distant crack of rifles, just wind brushing low across the torn earth ahead, carrying with it an almost gentle movement that does not belong in a place like this. You raise your head carefully, slowly, out of instinct more than intention, and look over the edge of the trench.
The land in front of you is ruined. Craters overlap craters, broken boards, fragments of equipment, wire, scraps of things that once had purpose now lie half buried in churned earth. Nothing out there appears alive. Nothing appears to move. It looks, at first glance, like exactly what men were taught to expect after bombardment and attrition. Destruction so complete that the battlefield seems emptied of human intention. But the longer you stare, the more that emptiness begins to feel unnatural. It is too still, too complete. The absence of movement does not reassure you, it unsettles you. Your mind searches for something familiar to anchor itself to. Smoke, figures, the echo of guns, any sign that the war you know is still operating according to its own terrible logic. But there is nothing. Then someone beside you speaks. The voice is low, hesitant, uncertain in a way that makes it instantly more alarming than if it had been loud. Do you see that? You narrow your eyes and look farther out. At first you don't. All you see is the same broken ground, the same stillness, the same pale ruin spread across the horizon. But then, slowly, so slowly that your mind nearly dismisses it as a trick of light, something begins to take shape. It looks like fog at first, except fog does not move like this. Fog does not seem to choose a direction. Fog does not carry color. This does. A faint green tint, unnatural against the gray and brown of the battlefield, begins to spread low across the ground. It is subtle enough to be doubted, and strange enough to be remembered instantly. It advances not with violence, but with certainty, a slow-moving wall of something that seems almost patient. There is no explosion behind it, no fire, no barrage, no sound that explains it, only that cloud, growing broader as it moves, creeping over the battlefield as if it has always belonged there. There is a pause in the trench, a hesitation that moves from man to man without being announced. No one speaks, no one acts, no one knows what they are looking at. The war they understand has never shown them this before. Danger is supposed to arrive with force, not with silence. It is supposed to reveal itself in noise, not in color. The uncertainty itself becomes a kind of paralysis. Men look, men wait, men try to decide whether this is something to fear or simply something they do not yet understand. Then, somewhere beside you, the silence breaks. Coughing. It is sudden, sharp, and wrong. It cuts through the trench with a force out of proportion to its volume, because everyone hears in it the first undeniable sign that whatever is approaching is no longer distant. Your head turns instinctively toward the sound, so do the heads of the men around you. There, outside the trench, a soldier has climbed up and moved a short distance into the open field. Why he did it you cannot know. Curiosity, confusion, the same urge that made every man in the trench keep looking, even when instinct was already warning them that something was off. He takes a few careful steps forward, his posture cautious, his body angled not like a man charging into danger, but like a man attempting to understand something that has not yet fit into his mind. For a second, nothing happens. Then his body changes. It is immediate, violent. His hands fly to his throat as if something has reached inside him and taken hold. He stops where he is, drops to his knees, and begins clawing at his neck with the blind urgency of a man trying to tear away something that is no longer outside him. There is no visible wound, no bullet, no impact anyone can see, and that, more than anything, fractures the last of the old certainty. Every soldier in that trench understands at once that this is not confusion anymore. This is attack.
By 1916, Allied leadership knew something had to be done to break the deadlock. Plans were made for a large-scale offensive involving both British and French forces. The chosen location was the Somme region, largely because it was where their lines met, not because of any decisive strategic advantage.
The original plan placed most of the responsibility on the French, with the British in a supporting role. However, events elsewhere disrupted that balance. The German offensive at Verdun placed enormous pressure on the French army, forcing them to redirect resources. As a result, the burden of the Somme offensive shifted heavily onto the British, many of whom lacked experience. There were also disagreements among commanders about how the battle should be fought. Some favored a limited, methodical approach, capturing small sections of enemy lines and consolidating gains before moving forward. Others pushed for a broader, more ambitious attack, aimed at breaking through multiple defensive layers at once. Ultimately, the more expansive plan was chosen. This decision had significant consequences, particularly for the use of artillery, which was central to the entire strategy. A massive bombardment was planned, lasting several days and involving an unprecedented number of shells. The expectation was that it would destroy enemy defenses completely, clearing the way for the infantry. However, several critical issues undermined this plan. The artillery was spread across a wider front than initially intended, reducing its effectiveness in any single area. A significant percentage of shells failed to detonate due to production issues, and many of those that did were not suited for the tasks required. Shrapnel shells, which made up a large portion of the ammunition, were effective against exposed troops, but largely ineffective against barbed wire or fortified positions. High explosive shells, which could have done more damage to defenses, were in shorter supply and often lacked sufficient power. Meanwhile, the German forces had spent months strengthening their positions. The terrain allowed them to construct deep, reinforced dugouts capable of withstanding heavy bombardment. Multiple defensive lines were established, supported by well-positioned machine guns and extensive barbed wire obstacles. When the bombardment began, it caused significant disruption, but it did not achieve its intended objective. Many German soldiers survived in underground shelters, waiting for the attack they knew was coming. On July 1, 1916, the infantry assault began. Thousands of British soldiers advanced across open ground toward the German lines. They moved in formation at a steady pace, carrying heavy equipment. They had been told that the bombardment had neutralized most resistance and that their advance would face minimal opposition. In reality, the situation was very different. As soon as the artillery lifted, German troops emerged from their shelters and manned their defenses. Machine guns were quickly set up, and the advancing soldiers became immediate targets. The result was catastrophic. In many areas, barbed wire remained intact, channeling advancing troops into narrow gaps that were already covered by enemy fire. The combination of open terrain, limited cover, and concentrated machine gun fire led to extremely high casualties within a very short period. By the end of the first day, the British Army had suffered nearly 60,000 casualties, including around 20,000 killed. It remains the single deadliest day in British military history. For the wounded, the situation was equally severe. Medical systems were overwhelmed, and many injured soldiers remained in no man's land for extended periods without assistance. Recovery efforts were limited, and advancing troops were often unable to stop to help those who had fallen. The impact on communities back home was profound, particularly for the PALS battalions. Entire groups of men from the same towns were lost in a matter of hours, leaving lasting effects on those communities. Despite the scale of the losses, the battle did not end on that first day. It continued for several months, with repeated offensives resulting in further casualties. New technologies, including tanks, were introduced, but they did not immediately change the outcome. By the time the battle concluded, total casualties across all sides exceeded 1 million. The territorial gains achieved were limited, amounting to only a few miles. Many of those who died were never recovered or identified. Their remains were lost in the destruction, leaving no grave to mark their passing. Memorials were later built to honor them, bearing thousands of names of the missing. The Battle of the Somme stands as a powerful example of the realities of modern industrial warfare, where planning, technology, and human cost collided on an unprecedented scale, and where the outcome, measured against the losses, continues to be questioned to this day.